The silver spoon clattered against the ceramic mug as Mackenzie O'Neill stirred her coffee absent-mindedly, her tired eyes scanning the nearly empty diner. At 26, she had perfected the art of appearing alert at 6 a.m. despite feeling anything but. 3 years of opening shifts at Rosie's Diner had taught her that the morning crowd was a special breed half-asleep commuters, night shift workers seeking breakfast before bed, and the occasional lost soul with nowhere else to be. Coffee refill. She asked the only customer seated at the counter, a man she'd seen a few times before but had exchanged no more than a dozen words with. He always chose the same spot, always ordered the same thing, black coffee and wheat toast, and always left a generous tip despite his modest order. He nodded without looking up from his book. "Please." His voice was quiet but not timid. There was something about him that made Mackenzie curious, perhaps the way he seemed perfectly content in his solitude, or how his clothes were simple but impeccably tailored. He wasn't remarkably handsome in the conventional sense, but his features were pleasant, with kind eyes behind horn-rimmed glasses and dark hair that fell across his forehead when he leaned forward to read. The bell above the door chimed as 3 men in business suits strode in, voices loud and demanding attention. Mackenzie recognized the type, immediately mid-level executives who wore their modest success like crowns, treating service workers as subjects rather than people. "We need 3 coffees fast," the tallest one barked without bothering with a greeting. "We've got a meeting in 20 minutes. "Good morning to you too," Mackenzie said with practiced cheerfulness. "I'll get those right away." She grabbed 3 mugs and filled them efficiently, placing them in front of the new arrivals who had seated themselves next to the quiet man. "What's good here?" one of the suits asked, not bothering to look at the menu. "The pancakes are made from scratch," Mackenzie offered. "And the breakfast skillet is, whatever, just make it quick," the man interrupted. "Some of us have important places to be." The quiet man at the counter shifted slightly, his shoulders tensing almost imperceptibly. The third suit noticed him and smirked. "Hey buddy, that's quite the book you've got there. What is that, War and Peace, trying to look smart for the waitress?" Mackenzie saw the quiet man's jaw tighten, but he didn't respond or look up. "I asked you a question," the suit persisted, nudging the quiet man's elbow. "What's wrong?" "Too good to talk to us?" "I'll take your orders whenever you're ready, gentlemen," Mackenzie said pointedly, trying to redirect their attention. "In a minute, sweetheart," the tall one said with a dismissive wave. He leaned toward the quiet man. "My friend asked you a question." The quiet man carefully placed a bookmark in his book and closed it. "It's actually the Wind-Up Bird Chronicle by Haruki Murakami," he said softly, "and I'd appreciate being left alone to read it." "Oh, he speaks," the second suit laughed. "Japanese fiction." "Let me guess, unemployed philosophy major?" Mackenzie felt a surge of anger. The quiet man had never been anything but polite, and these jerks were harassing him for no reason. "Actually," she cut in firmly, "he's one of our regulars and a perfect gentleman, which is more than I can say for you 3 right now. Now, are you going to order food, or should I just bring the check for your coffees?" The suits looked stunned at her intervention. The quiet man glanced up at her with surprise in his eyes. "We're customers," the tall one sputtered indignantly. "You can't talk to us like that." "And he's a customer too," Mackenzie countered, her green eyes flashing. "One who comes in regularly and doesn't harass people trying to enjoy their breakfast in peace. So yes, I can and will ask you to be respectful or take your business elsewhere." The quiet man's lips curved into a small, appreciative smile that transformed his face, making Mackenzie suddenly aware of how handsome he actually was when not hidden behind his reserved demeanor. The suits grumbled but backed down, ordering quickly and avoiding eye contact. When they left 30 minutes later, they didn't tip. "I'm sorry about them," Mackenzie said to the quiet man as she cleared the neighboring spaces. "Don't be," he replied, his voice warmer than she'd ever heard it. "That was kind of you. My name is Isaac, by the way, Isaac Bentley." "Mackenzie O'Neill," she replied with a smile, extending her hand. "But everyone calls me Mac." His handshake was firm but gentle. "Thank you, Mac. Not many people would have done that." Just doing my job, she shrugged, though they both knew that wasn't true. Protecting the peace and quiet of my favorite customer. She meant it as a joke, but the words hung in the air between them, creating a moment of unexpected connection. For the first time, Isaac held her gaze for more than a passing second, and Mackenzie felt something shift in the atmosphere of the quiet diner. "I've been coming here for months," Isaac said, "and that's the first time I've seen anyone handle a situation quite like that." 3 years of waiting tables gives you a certain skill set, Mackenzie laughed. "Diffusing tension is practically in my job description. You're good at it, better than my corporate mediators, and they get paid 6 figures. She raised an eyebrow. "Corporate mediators. What exactly do you do, Isaac?" He hesitated, then offered a vague smile. "I work in real estate development." The diner door swung open again before she could ask more questions, and Mackenzie was swept back into the morning rush. By the time she had a moment to breathe, Isaac had left, but next to his empty coffee cup was a $100 bill and a note written on a napkin for defending the quiet man. "Thank you." Mackenzie stared at the generous tip, wondering what kind of real estate development job allowed for such extravagance. The next day, Isaac didn't come to the diner, nor did he appear the day after that. By the 3rd day of his absence, Mackenzie found herself watching the door each time it opened, a small flutter of disappointment in her chest when it wasn't him. On the 4th day, just as she was about to end her shift, the bell chimed and Isaac walked in, but he wasn't alone. A sharply dressed woman in a business suit accompanied him, both of them deep in conversation about property values and investment potential. "Just a quick coffee, Vanessa, then we can head to the site," Isaac was saying as they approached the counter. He looked up and saw Mackenzie, his serious expression immediately softening. "Hello, Mac." "Isaac," she greeted, suddenly aware of how disheveled she must look after a long shift. "Your usual, please," he nodded, "and whatever my colleague would like." The woman Vanessa ordered an elaborate specialty coffee that wasn't even on their menu. Mackenzie made it anyway, trying not to feel irrationally disappointed that Isaac had brought a business associate to what she had begun to think of as their private morning ritual. "We're looking at the old Morrison building," Isaac explained, seemingly sensing her curiosity. "It's been vacant for years, but it has potential." "The eyesore on 10th Street, Mackenzie asked, surprised. "That place is practically falling apart." "That's what makes it interesting," Isaac replied. "Sometimes the things most people overlook have the most value." There was something in the way he said it, his eyes never leaving hers, that made her wonder if he was talking about more than just buildings. "Isaac sees potential where others see problems," Vanessa interjected, her tone professional but with an undercurrent of admiration that made Mackenzie instantly dislike her. "It's why his projects are so successful." Mackenzie set down their coffees. "Well, 10th Street could definitely use some improvement. Half the stores there have been boarded up since I was in high school." Isaac looked interested. "You grew up here, born and raised," she confirmed. "This diner put me through community college." "What did you study?" he asked, seeming genuinely curious. "Urban planning, if you can believe it," she admitted with a small laugh. "I wanted to help revitalize neighborhoods like the one I grew up in. But then life happened, student loans needed paying, and here I am, still making the best coffee in town." Isaac's eyes lit up with something that looked like recognition. "Urban planning, that's Isaac," Vanessa interrupted, checking her watch pointedly. "We should go if we want to meet the contractor on time." He nodded, finishing his coffee quickly. As they prepared to leave, Isaac hesitated. "Mac, would you? I mean, since you studied urban planning, would you be interested in seeing the Morrison building? Your local perspective could be valuable." Vanessa looked startled by the suggestion, but Isaac seemed earnest. "Aye, sure," Mackenzie replied, surprised. "I get off at 3 tomorrow." "I'll pick you up," he said with a smile that transformed his usually serious face. "And Mac, thank you again. For the other day, after they left, Mackenzie tried to make sense of the invitation. Was it professional interest in her background? Simple gratitude for standing up for him? Or something more, The next day, Mackenzie spent more time than usual getting ready for work, choosing her nicest jeans and a soft blue sweater to change into after her shift. She felt ridiculous it wasn't a date, it was just a professional courtesy. Yet she couldn't help the flutter of anticipation in her stomach. At precisely 3 o'clock, a sleek black SUV pulled up outside the diner. Isaac stepped out, looking different in dark jeans and a casual button-down shirt instead of his usual muted business attire. "Ready?" he asked with a small smile when she emerged from the diner. "As I'll ever be," she replied, suddenly nervous. "Though I should warn you, my urban planning knowledge is pretty rusty." "I'm more interested in your perspective as someone who grew up here," Isaac said as he opened the passenger door for her. "The technical details I can get from consultants." The car's interior was luxurious, but understated expensive without being flashy. Mackenzie tried not to look too impressed, but she couldn't help noticing the handcrafted leather seats and state-of-the-art technology. "Nice car for a real estate guy," she commented lightly. Isaac's hands flexed slightly on the steering wheel. "It's practical for site visits." They drove across town to the Morrison Building, a once grand structure that had been empty for as long as Mackenzie could remember. Isaac led her through the abandoned building, pointing out architectural features and explaining his vision for the space. The ground floor could be retail, small local businesses, not chains, he explained, his usually quiet voice animated with passion. The upper floors could be a mix of affordable apartments and office spaces for startups. We'd preserve the original facade, of course. Mackenzie found herself caught up in his enthusiasm. "You could include a community space," she suggested. "This neighborhood has a lot of artists but nowhere to showcase their work." Isaac's eyes lit up. "That's exactly the kind of insight I was hoping for." "What else would benefit the community here?" For the next hour, they walked through the dusty building, exchanging ideas with increasing excitement. Mackenzie was surprised by how easily they fell into conversation and how attentively Isaac listened to her suggestions. "You know," he said as they stood on the rooftop overlooking the city, "you have a natural talent for this. Your instincts about community needs are spot on," she laughed, brushing dust from her jeans. "Just the perspective of someone who's lived here forever, nothing special." "That's where you're wrong," Isaac said quietly. "Local knowledge like yours is invaluable. Most developers fly in, impose their vision, and leave without understanding what the community actually needs." The sincerity in his voice made her really look at him. In the golden afternoon light, with the city spread out behind him and passion for his work evident in every word, Isaac was more than handsome. He was magnetic. "So," she said, trying to keep her tone light, "how does a quiet guy who reads Japanese literature in diners end up in real estate development?" Isaac leaned against the rooftop railing. "I was actually an architecture student first. Then I realized I wanted to do more than design buildings. I wanted to create spaces that could change communities." "What about you? How does an urban planning graduate end up at Rossi's?" "My mom got sick during my final year of college," she explained, surprised at how easily the words came. She rarely shared this with anyone. Medical bills piled up. The diner job was supposed to be temporary, but then Mom passed away and I was left with the house, the bills, and not much else. Rossi's was stable when I needed stability. Isaac's face softened with genuine sympathy. "I'm sorry about your mother." "It was 3 years ago," she said with a small shrug that didn't quite hide the lingering pain. "You adapt." "You do," he agreed quietly, and something in his tone made her wonder what losses he'd adapted to. As the sun began to set, Isaac suggested dinner. "There's a small Italian place around the corner. Nothing fancy, but the food is authentic." The restaurant was indeed small and unassuming, but the elderly owner greeted Isaac by name and led them to a secluded table in the corner. Over homemade pasta and rich red wine, they talked about everything except work, favorite books, childhood memories, travel dreams. "So you've really never left this state?" Isaac asked, looking genuinely surprised. Mackenzie shook her head. "Never had the time or money. But I've got a map with pins in all the places I want to see someday." "Where's the first pin?" "Italy," she admitted. I want to see Rome and Florence, all that history and art. It seems magical. Isaac's eyes held hers. It is. The light in Florence at sunset is unlike anywhere else in the world. The way he described it, the golden glow on ancient buildings, the feeling of walking through living history made her feel as though she were there with him. By the time they finished dinner, Mackenzie realized 3 hours had passed in what felt like minutes. Outside the restaurant, the night air was cool and clear. Isaac walked her back to her car at the diner, their conversation flowing easily. "Thank you for today," he said as they reached her old Honda. "Your insights were invaluable." "I should be thanking you," she replied. It was nice to dust off the old urban planning dreams for an afternoon. Isaac hesitated, then said, "What if they didn't have to be just dreams?" Before she could ask what he meant, he leaned forward and kissed her cheek softly. "Good night, Mackenzie O'Neill." The gesture was so unexpected, so gentle, that she stood frozen by her car long after he had driven away, her fingertips touching the spot where his lips had been. The next morning, Isaac arrived at the diner at his usual time, taking his regular seat at the counter. But everything felt different now, charged with possibility. "Black coffee and wheat toast?" she asked with a smile. "You know me well," he replied, then added, "I was thinking about what you said yesterday about community space for local artists." "What about it?" "I've adjusted the plans to include a gallery and workshop area on the mezzanine level." Mackenzie stared at him. "Just like that." "You changed your development plans because of my suggestion?" Isaac shrugged as if it were nothing. "It was a good idea. I recognize those when I hear them." Before she could respond, her manager approached the counter. "Mac, there's someone here to see you." He looked nervous, which was unusual for the normally unflappable man. A tall, distinguished older gentleman in an impeccable suit stood by the entrance. When he saw Isaac, he strode over immediately. "There you are," he said to Isaac. "Your assistant said I might find you here. We need to discuss the Morrison project. The investors are getting antsy." Isaac's expression changed subtly, becoming more guarded. "Robert, this isn't the place." "Nonsense," Robert countered. "Time is money. The board needs reassurance that Bentley Developments isn't making another charitable project out of this. The foundation can handle philanthropy. The company needs to show profits." Mackenzie froze, coffee pot in hand. Bentley Developments. The name was familiar to anyone in the city. It was on half the major buildings downtown. Robert finally seemed to notice her. "Oh, excuse me, miss. Could I trouble you for a coffee while Mr. Bentley and I talk?" "Mr. Bentley," she repeated, looking at Isaac, whose expression was a mixture of resignation and apology. "Mackenzie," Isaac began. "You're Isaac Bentley," she said flatly. "As in Bentley Developments, as in the Bentley Financial Group." Robert looked between them, confused. "You didn't know?" Isaac is practically royalty in the business world. 34 and already transformed the company his father built. The Morrison project is just the latest in his portfolio. "Robert," Isaac said sharply, "give us a moment, please." The older man raised an eyebrow but retreated to a nearby table. "You're a millionaire," Mackenzie said quietly, feeling foolish. "Why didn't you say something?" Isaac ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration she hadn't seen from him before. "Would it have mattered? Would you have treated me differently if you'd known? That's not fair. You let me think you were just some mid-level real estate guy." "I never lied about what I do," he pointed out. "And I liked that you treated me like a person, not a bank account or a business opportunity." Mackenzie thought about the $100 tip, the expensive car, the way the restaurant owner had treated him like a valued regular. The signs had all been there. "So what was yesterday about?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Was I just local color for your project? The token input from the common folk?" "No," Isaac said firmly, his quiet voice taking on an edge she hadn't heard before. "Yesterday was about spending time with a woman who defended a stranger against bullies, who is smart and insightful, and who made me laugh more in one afternoon than I have in years." His sincerity was disarming, but Mackenzie was still trying to reconcile the quiet man who read at her counter with the powerful businessman everyone else apparently knew him to be. "I need to work," she said, nodding toward the other customers who were waiting. Your colleague is waiting for you. Isaac looked like he wanted to say more but nodded instead. I understand, but Mackenzie, nothing I told you yesterday was untrue, nothing I felt was pretend. She watched him join Robert, their heads bent in serious conversation. Periodically, Isaac would glance up at her, his expression unreadable behind his now familiar glasses. By the time they left, Mackenzie had convinced herself that whatever had sparked between them was over before it began. Their worlds were too different, the imbalance too great. He was Isaac Bentley, millionaire developer, and she was just a waitress with abandoned dreams. 3 days passed without Isaac appearing at the diner. Mackenzie told herself it was for the best, even as she found herself watching the door each morning. On the 4th day, a courier arrived with an envelope addressed to her. Inside was a formal letter on Bentley Development's letterhead, Dear Miss O'Neill, based on your background in urban planning and your demonstrated understanding of community needs, Bentley Developments would like to offer you a position as community liaison for the Morrison Building Revitalization Project. This role would involve gathering input from local residents, coordinating with neighborhood associations, and ensuring the project benefits the existing community rather than displacing it. The position comes with a competitive salary and benefits package, as outlined in the attached documents. Please contact our HR department at your earliest convenience if you wish to discuss this opportunity further. Sincerely, Robert Whitman, Chief Operating Officer, Bentley Developments. There was a handwritten notepaper clipped to the letter. This is not because of what happened between us. This is because you're qualified and passionate about the community. The job is yours regardless of your feelings toward me. Isaac Mackenzie stared at the letter, emotions warring within her. The salary listed was more than triple what she made at the diner. It was the kind of opportunity she had given up hoping for years ago, but was it really about her qualifications? Or was it Isaac's way of assuaging his guilt? She was still contemplating the offer when her shift ended. Lost in thought, she nearly collided with someone outside the diner. I'm sorry I wasn't, she began, then stopped when she realized it was Isaac. He looked different, tired, with a day's stubble on his jaw and his usual immaculate clothes slightly rumpled. I wasn't sure you'd want to see me, he said, but I needed to explain in person. Mackenzie held up the letter. You're offering me a job. The company is offering you a job, he corrected, based on your qualifications. Robert agreed after reviewing your background and my notes on your suggestions. It's legitimate, Mac. Why not just tell me who you were from the beginning? She asked, the question that had been burning in her mind for days. Isaac sighed, leaning against the brick wall of the diner. When I first started coming here, it was because it was quiet and no one knew me. I could just be a guy with a book, not Isaac Bentley with all the expectations that come with that name. He met her eyes. Then there was this waitress who treated everyone with the same respect, whether they ordered a full breakfast or just coffee. Who remembered my order and never tried to make uncomfortable small talk. It was refreshing. Mackenzie remembered the day she had defended him. And then I got involved. And then you stood up for me when you didn't have to, he corrected. Do you know how rare that is in my world? People either want something from me or they're afraid to disagree with me. You just did what you thought was right. The sincerity in his voice was unmistakable. So what happens now? She asked quietly. That's up to you, Isaac replied. The job offer stands regardless of anything else. You're qualified and the project would benefit from your perspective. And the anything else, Isaac took a deep breath. I've spent the last 3 days trying to convince myself that I should keep my distance. That someone like you, genuine, grounded, real, deserves better than someone whose world is filled with people who only care about what he can do for them. He stepped closer. But I'm not that noble, Mac. I miss talking to you. I miss your smile when you refill my coffee. I miss the way you see potential in things others have written off. His voice dropped lower. I think I was falling for you before you even knew my last name. The confession hung in the air between them. Mackenzie felt her heart racing, her practical concerns warring with the undeniable pull she felt toward him. I don't know anything about your world, she said honestly, and I've been trying to escape it at every opportunity, he countered with a small smile. Maybe we could learn from each other. What about the job offer? Take it if you want it, don't if you don't. My feelings won't change either way. Mackenzie looked at the man before her, not Isaac Bentley the millionaire, but Isaac who read difficult books at the counter, who listened to her ideas as if they mattered, who saw potential in abandoned buildings and waitresses with forgotten dreams. I have conditions, she said finally. Isaac raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. If I take the job, I want it understood that it's because I'm qualified, not because of whatever this is between us, he nodded. Absolutely, what else? If we're going to see where this goes, she gestured between them, I need to know you'll always be honest with me. No more omissions. Agreed. Anything else? Mackenzie took a deep breath and stepped closer. Yes, I need you to kiss me properly this time, not on the cheek. Isaac's serious expression transformed into a smile that lit up his entire face. He closed the distance between them, one hand gently cupping her face as he lowered his lips to hers. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, but quickly deepened as Mackenzie responded, her hands finding their way to his shoulders. When they finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Isaac rested his forehead against hers. I've wanted to do that since you told those suits to leave me alone. Mackenzie laughed. I've wanted you to do that since you left me that ridiculously large tip. So what now? He asked, his fingers intertwining with hers. Now I think you should buy me dinner, she replied with newfound confidence. Something not on the Rossi's menu. And you can tell me more about this community liaison position while we eat. 6 months later, Mackenzie stood in the center of the transformed Morrison building, clipboard in hand, directing volunteers as they set up for the grand opening. The community gallery space, now named the O'Neill Gallery in honor of her mother, was featuring works from local artists for its inaugural exhibition. Her phone buzzed with a text from Isaac. Meeting running late. Save me from the investors. Need extraction ASAP. She smiled and texted back. Tell them your community liaison needs an urgent consultation, not technically a lie. 10 minutes later, Isaac appeared, loosening his tie as he approached. You're a lifesaver, he murmured, kissing her briefly. Robert was about to launch into another lecture about profit margins. Poor millionaire, she teased, straightening his tie affectionately. Forced to listen to people talk about all his money. He laughed, the sound no longer rare as it had been when they first met. How are the preparations going? See for yourself, she said, gesturing around the bustling space. Local residents were hanging artwork, arranging furniture, and transforming the once abandoned building into a vibrant community hub. Isaac surveyed the scene with pride. This is even better than I imagined. Your vision made all the difference. Our vision, she corrected. I couldn't have done this without your trust and support. In the months since she had accepted both the job and Isaac's heart, Mackenzie had discovered that her background in urban planning combined with her personal connection to the community made her uniquely qualified for her role. The Morrison Project had evolved under their joint guidance, becoming a model for community-centered development that other cities were beginning to notice. Have I told you today how much I love you? Isaac asked quietly, his arms slipping around her waist. Not since breakfast, she replied with a smile. Unacceptable oversight, he said seriously. I love you, Mackenzie O'Neill, not just for defending a quiet man at a diner counter, but for everything you've brought into my life since then. I love you too, she said simply. Even though you're ridiculously wealthy and sometimes forget that normal people don't have heated bathroom floors. He laughed again, the sound drawing smiles from the volunteers nearby who had grown accustomed to seeing the once reserved businessman transformed by love. Speaking of wealth, he said, reaching into his pocket, there's something I've been wanting to ask you. Mackenzie's heart skipped as he pulled out a small velvet box. Around them, the volunteers quieted, sensing a moment unfolding. I had planned an elaborate proposal, Isaac admitted. But standing here, seeing what we've created together, both this project and our relationship, I can't think of a more perfect moment. He opened the box to reveal a ring with a simple yet stunning design, a delicate band supporting a brilliant diamond surrounded by smaller stones. "The center stone is new," he explained, "but the smaller ones belong to my grandmother. A woman who, like you, never let anyone's status determine how she treated them." Mackenzie felt tears forming as Isaac dropped to one knee, still holding her hand. "Mackenzie O'Neill, you walked into my quiet life and filled it with purpose, laughter, and love. You saw me before you knew my name or net worth. You challenge me, support me, and make me better every day. Would you do me the extraordinary honor of becoming my wife?" The gallery fell completely silent, every eye on them. "Yes," Mackenzie answered without hesitation, her voice clear despite her tears. "1,000 times yes." As Isaac slipped the ring onto her finger and rose to kiss her, applause erupted around them. In that moment, surrounded by the community they were helping to rebuild and wrapped in each other's arms, both knew they had found something far more valuable than wealth or status. They had found a love built on respect, honesty, and kindness. 1 year later, they stood hand in hand on a balcony in Florence, watching the sunset paint the ancient city in shades of gold, the first pin from Mackenzie's map of dreams. The Morrison Building had won awards for innovative urban renewal, and Mackenzie now headed Bentley Development's entire community engagement division. "What are you thinking?" Isaac asked, noticing her contemplative expression as she looked out over the city. "I'm thinking about how defending a quiet man from some rude customers changed the entire course of my life," she replied, leaning against him. "And how sometimes the best things come from the most unexpected beginnings." Isaac kissed her softly, the Italian sunset turning his normally serious face into something almost magical. "I knew I was falling in love with you the moment you told those suits to leave me alone or take their business elsewhere." "Really? That early," he confirmed. "Though I think I fell a little more when you called me out on being a millionaire and refused to let me off the hook." Mackenzie laughed, the sound carrying across the rooftops of Florence. Who would have thought that the best way to a millionaire's heart was to not care about his money? "I'm just grateful you cared about me instead," Isaac said softly, pulling her closer as the last rays of sun disappeared beyond the horizon, leaving them bathed in the warm glow of Florentine twilight and the even warmer certainty of a love that had begun with one simple act of kindness.